Trey and Steven both asked questions, and I wanted to address them both kind of in one segment. So Trey asked, what do you think about the rumblings we're hearing out of LSU this weekend? I'll explain that in a second. Steven said, do you think this year, if it goes sideways, could it be so bad it hurts LSU recruiting? So I'm going to get to both of these. Trey asked a question, what do I think about what we're hearing out of LSU? A lot of you probably aren't aware of what's been happening down there unless you're an LSU fan, but this is important because it ties into the greater college football picture and what I told you was coming. Remember 2 weekends ago, at Oklahoma, they had a player-organized massive recruiting weekend. You cannot do this right now because it is a recruiting dead period. Coaches can't be organizing this stuff like they normally would, but players can, because there's no rule on what players are allowed to do at the high school level if they want to pay their own way. So Caleb Williams, number one quarterback in the country this upcoming recruiting cycle, he's committed to Oklahoma. He and a lot of other folks got together, and they just did their own recruiting visit with a bunch of elite guys, some of whom were not committed to Oklahoma and still aren't. And they just did a visit, and they hung out, and they went to Norman, and a lot of people took notice of that. Georgia didn't have a flashy name for their weekend, but they did the same thing a couple of weekends ago. And so we came out of that, and I had a lot of people in the comment section saying, oh, they're cheating. Oh, there's no way that just players organize that. Well, look at what they have to resort to. And I told you, number one, I thought it was brilliant. And number two, I said, careful, careful. If you're a Texas fan or an Alabama fan or an LSU, Florida, I had everybody. It ran the gamut. Everybody who was not of Oklahoma or Georgia was criticizing this and throwing around accusations. And I said, you better be careful because you will be doing this soon. LSU did it this weekend. LSU, now I don't know if they had a fancy name for it either, but I was talking to Shay Dixon down at Go 24/7 about kind of what led up to this. And sure enough, Garrett Nussmeier, just like Caleb Williams, big-time quarterback commit for LSU in their upcoming class, kind of organized a big recruiting weekend. How big, Josh, how big was this recruiting weekend? I mean, big can mean so many things. Well, how does this sound? Now, I don't know what the final numbers are. I know they planned on having 13 guys in there, all 13 in the top 150. I think 9 of the 13 ranked in the top 100 of the top 247 player rankings. So is that big enough for you? Mason Smith, 5-star defensive tackle. Corey Foreman, all the way out of California, one of the very top players in America. Tristan Lay, 5-star offensive tackle, all in town. And so now juxtapose this to what the latest word out of LSU has been. It's just been negative, 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 blow after blow after blow. Recruiting is not going away here, okay? I don't care if they go 5-5 this year. Recruiting's not going away. Imagine the selling point. Now, if you're a salesman, like Ed Orgeron is, as much as this season may have some hurdles, imagine the selling point that we just won a national championship 15 minutes ago, and we got a lot of playing time to sell, and we're good at recruiting, and we're in Louisiana. You know, we have everything to offer. It's not the hardest proposition in the world to push. But here was the second question that we got from Steven. Again, do you think this year could be so bad that it hurts LSU recruiting? No, I don't. From a record standpoint. Now, if there are unforeseen internal or cultural issues that arise, that's beyond the scope of anything we could talk about on this show right now. But if it's just a garden variety, you know, win the national championship, lose a lot of talent, and then have some more guys opt out, so you just don't have good enough players and or experience and team chemistry to win, and that's it? No. Actually, it could do the opposite. It could do the inverse. It could help. Think about what you have at LSU that virtually any other team that could struggle this year doesn't have. I'm going to do a comparative analysis here. This is not a prediction. But for argument's sake, let's take Georgia. Georgia is expected to compete for the SEC this year. But let's say Georgia went 6-4. Let's just say for whatever reason, things went sideways for them. They went 6-4. And let's say LSU went 6-4 this year too. Think about the differences in the way that recruits would look at those programs and the differences in the way that competing programs would be able to recruit against them on the recruiting trail. So if I am a 5-star linebacker out of what random town do we want to pick? Let's do Tyler, Texas. So I'm a 5-star linebacker out of Tyler, Texas. This is a theoretical 5-star linebacker. I don't think we have one in Tyler, Texas this year, but I'm down to Georgia. and I'm down to fill in the blank university and LSU, and fill in the blank universities in my living room. They could look at me. If Georgia went 6-4, they could look at me and say, man, I don't think Kirby's got it, dude. They're not going to win a national championship over there. Like, what are you going to achieve there? They got all those resources. They got everything they could ever need, but they just don't get it done. You can't say that about LSU because LSU has something very few folks have. When they walk into your living room, they got a national championship in their back pocket. And they also have a litany of guys they just sent to the NFL draft. So I want three things really. I want to be able to compete for championships. I want to be developed to my full potential, and I want to get access to playing time. I want to earn it, but I want to get access to playing time. If LSU's season goes bad, they've got the national championship ring on their finger when they walk in my living room, and it's still fresh. It's still nice and shiny. They just won it. So they've proven to me already. With the right players in the stable, we can win a championship, man. We just set all kinds of records in doing so. Number two, all those guys who won that title are in the NFL now. So there's your proof of development. And number three, did you hear what I said? All those guys are in the NFL, and we just had a bad year. You know what that means? That means we can develop you. That means we can get you to the NFL. That means we can win a title. And that means we need you to be able to do it again. And look at all this potential playing time. So no, again, outside of some external factor that we could never see, there is no way that one bad season is knocking LSU recruiting off track. Absolutely not happening.